The day Kristi Noem walked out of that hospital, looking frail but determined, she likely expected the cameras to focus on her recovery, on the symbolism of strength and perseverance that political figures often like to project in the wake of health issues. Yet what she did not expect, what no one saw coming, was how Jasmine Crockett would take that moment and use it as a glaring spotlight to reveal the deep and unresolved hypocrisy embedded in Noem's governance. In a country fatigued by soundbites and political deflection, Crockett's statement cut through like a scalpel. She left the hospital, but she hasn't left the damage she's done to women's health behind. It wasn't just a critique, it was a reckoning. While the country reeled from that sentence, the weight of its meaning began to seep into every conversation surrounding Noem's hospital discharge. The moment had the ring of history to it, not because it was rehearsed or polished, but because it spoke a raw truth few dared to utter on camera. Crockett, in her signature fashion, refused to allow the moment to be sterilized. Instead, she cracked it open, and out came every grievance, every ignored voice, every legislative trauma that women in South Dakota and beyond had endured under Noem's policies. The hospital gown may have come off, but the consequences of her actions still clung tightly. In the immediate hours following her remark, Crockett's office received thousands of messages. Some were hate mail from far-right circles, accusing her of lacking compassion. Others were tear-stained letters from women who had been denied care, denied dignity, denied choice under the very legislative architecture Noem had constructed. One message came from a young woman named Allison, a South Dakota college student who described being forced to drive across state lines in the dead of night just to obtain access to reproductive health care. Jasmine told the truth. She wrote, "Governor Noem can heal, but what about the rest of us?" Crockett, who has long been a vocal advocate for equity in healthcare, understood that her sentence had become something larger than a mere critique. It had become a rallying cry, and she didn't shrink from it. On her social media pages, she doubled down, sharing links to medical studies, quotes from doctors in underserved rural communities, and videos from constituents who had been impacted by the restrictive laws that South Dakota had enacted under Noem's leadership. Each post served as both a declaration and a challenge. You can't talk about healing while still defending policies that make others sick. The media frenzy intensified. Daytime talk shows booked panels to debate the Crockett sentence. As it came to be known, was it inappropriate? Was it powerful? Could it be both? On The View, a fiery exchange broke out between guest hosts. Sunny Hostin passionately defended Crockett, saying, "It's not cruelty to name cruelty. It's not heartless to demand justice while someone else seeks mercy." Meanwhile, conservative commentators tried to spin the narrative, suggesting Crockett's comment was tactless. But what none of them could do was erase the truth at its core. The sentence refused to die. Editorials appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and Rolling Stone, each offering their own lens on Crockett's remark. In an op-ed titled, "What One Sentence Revealed About the American Soul," Pulitzer-winning columnist Dana Greer wrote, "In just 14 words, Representative Crockett reminded the nation that accountability does not pause for convalescence, nor should justice be delayed until its offenders are comfortable." The essay was shared over 1 million times in under 24 hours. The conversation took a more serious turn when public health professionals began weighing in. A consortium of doctors from the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists released a statement in support of Crockett's broader message. Policies that restrict access to healthcare, including reproductive care, cause measurable harm to women and families. Political leaders must be held accountable for the public health consequences of their decisions. Representative Crockett's words reflect this reality. For many, it was a wake-up call that the personal is indeed political, and vice versa. Meanwhile, Noem's office attempted to regain control of the narrative. They released a second statement, this time indirectly responding to Crockett by emphasizing Noem's dedication to life and faith-based values. But the damage, or perhaps more accurately, the illumination, had already been done. The political shield Noem often relied upon, faith, family, frontier grit, suddenly seemed paper-thin against the gravity of real-world suffering that Crockett had summoned into the spotlight. Jasmine Crockett continued her public appearances in the days that followed, unshaken. At a university town hall in Dallas, she was asked about the backlash she'd received for her comment. She paused, looked the young woman in the audience directly in the eyes, and said, "I didn't come to Congress to make people comfortable. I came here to make people seen, heard, and safe." If I have to be hated for speaking the truth, so be it. The room erupted in applause, and video clips of the moment soon found their way onto every social platform. Her defiance inspired more than just online conversation. Advocacy groups, galvanized by her message, began organizing rapid response campaigns aimed at pressuring governors across red states to reconsider restrictive healthcare legislation. A movement started to emerge under the banner #HealUsToo, referencing the idea that personal healing cannot be used as a distraction from systemic harm. One of the largest women's marches in South Dakota history took place that weekend, with protesters holding signs that read, "You left the hospital. We're still waiting for care." Even in Hollywood, Crockett's words resonated. Actress and activist Kerry Washington posted a lengthy Instagram statement, calling Crockett the voice we need right now. Others like Viola Davis, Mark Ruffalo, and Alyssa Milano echoed that sentiment. Suddenly, what had started as a sentence in a hallway had become a cultural inflection point, a reminder that truth, especially when inconvenient, has an undeniable force. Back in Washington, the political tension around the comment only escalated. Republican members began using it as a rallying cry of their own, accusing Democrats of weaponizing health. But their attempts to pivot fell flat in the face of Crockett's clarity. In a televised town hall, she delivered what some are now calling her most powerful speech to date. Governor Noem has every right to heal, and I sincerely wish her health. But healing without reflection is just denial. You can't heal in private while the public suffers in silence. As Congress moved toward heated budget discussions that included debates over healthcare funding, Crockett's stance began to influence real policy conversations. Her words were quoted in subcommittee hearings. Provisions were proposed to protect rural clinics from closure, ensure access to reproductive health services, and mandate healthcare transparency from governors' offices. And while these changes didn't pass overnight, the shift in tone was unmistakable. Jasmine Crockett had changed the stakes. For Kristi Noem, the silence became heavier by the day. When she finally appeared for a carefully orchestrated press conference, she avoided all mention of Crockett, instead focusing on South Dakota's values and her plans to get back to work. But the press wasn't buying it. Question after question drilled at the same wound. What about the women who couldn't access care under your leadership? What about the communities suffering long before you ever walked into that hospital? Noem's answers were vague, her tone unconvincing, and the contrast with Crockett's clarity was glaring. In private Democratic circles, Crockett's courage became a case study in how to redirect narratives. She hadn't planned it, she hadn't scripted it, but she'd reminded her colleagues that sometimes, all it takes is one sentence, grounded in lived experience and moral conviction, to set off a wave of truth too big to ignore. Newcomer representatives began seeking her out for mentorship, wanting to learn how to speak with that level of conviction. And seasoned lawmakers admitted quietly that they hadn't seen a moment like this in years. When asked weeks later whether she regretted the sentence, Crockett offered a definitive no. If anything, she said, I regret that we live in a country where stating the truth about someone's policies is considered more offensive than the policies themselves. That statement earned a standing ovation at a reproductive rights fundraiser, and a new round of headlines. As this movement continues to grow, it's worth remembering how it began. One woman recovering in silence, another refusing to stay silent, and in between them, the entire nation grappling with a single, searing sentence that refused to be ignored. And so, as we look ahead to the elections, to the legislative battles, to the kitchen table conversations in homes across America, let this moment be a reminder that words matter, that truth matters, and that the people we elect must be held accountable not just in times of strength, but in moments of vulnerability. Healing, after all, is not just for those with hospital access, it's a right we all deserve. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can follow this powerful story as it unfolds. Jasmine Crockett has spoken up. Now, it's our turn to keep the conversation going.